Okay, our other taxi cab is CoA. CoA says, oh, it's my friend acetyl, I'll pick him up. So he takes acetyl and he drives him over to Mr. oxaloacetate, which is a 4-carbon molecule. And so when acetyl gets dropped off, we'll just attach him over here. And it becomes a 6-carbon molecule. It's not glucose. It looks similar, right?
Yes, it does.
But it's called citric acid.
Hence citric acid cycle. That makes sense.
Hence citric acid cycle. So, a real brief rundown of what happens is acetyl and oxaloacetate combined.
Mm-hmm.
We'll eventually lose these 2 carbons that make up acetyl, and then oxaloacetate is going to end up back there every time.
Always.
That's why it's the citric acid cycle, because it just keeps cycling through.
Beautiful.
Cool?
Cool.
Okay, so this next part takes some memorizing,
That's okay.
but this is how I think of it. It's just kind of easy, even though it looks difficult at first. I just memorize these 3 sets of letters: CN, CN, AFN. If you can memorize those, you know everything that's going to be produced.
CN, CN, AFN. Okay.
Maybe you can make some kind of words out of that. I don't know. But
Okay.
so the order it goes in is it comes down, produces CO2. What else can it produce with an N? NADH. It comes back through,
Mm-hmm.
CO2, NADH. Here it gives a phosphate away, it makes ATP. Here's one that we haven't seen before yet.
Oh,
It's
this is
gonna get-
CN, CN. Uh-huh.
You
I
see
get
that?
it.
Okay.
This is sneaky.
And then FADH2.
How are these things all turning into each other?
I'll show you just a sec. And then also NADH. And then it's back to oxaloacetate, which should be up there. So this is what we're producing. Okay, so this is similar to all the other cycles that we've been going through. Here, how did we make CO2?
Took off a carbon.
And 2 oxygen, right?
Yes.
Here we do the same thing to both of those.
Okay.
And
you
so-
have 1 carbon and 2 oxygen.
Yeah, remember how we had this acetyl attached here? When we gave away this carbon, we took one of those off.
Okay.
When we made this CO2 out of that carbon, we took another off. So we already lost, by this point of the cycle,
Mhm.
we've lost the original glucose molecule.
Okay. Because we took off 2 carbon.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some other things that we're giving away from that original thing, but all the carbons from that original glucose molecule are gone.
Okay.
Yeah. So the NADH, what do you think happened here?
Hydrogen.
Yeah.
Something about hydrogen.
Gave away 2 hydrogens.
Yes.
ATP?
ATP. Took a phosphate.
Probably a phosphate. Hydrogen for FADH and then
Hydrogen.
hydrogen.
What's the
Right?
difference between FADH and NADH?
So FADH is the same thing. It's a carrier molecule for hydrogen or for electrons.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, with the electron transport chain, it's a little less efficient. So it doesn't have as strong of a impact
Okay.
when it releases.
So NADH is like prime.
Yeah, it's a bit stronger.
Cool.
So we like NADH more.
Okay, yeah.
And
Love
so we'll produce a lot more of it.
it.
Okay. Any questions at this point?
Not that I can.
No?
Wait, hold on. So that's two hydrogen on the FADH, right? Yeah, it takes
Yeah.
2 hydrogen.
I
Because
believe it does the
two-
same exact thing as an ADH.
Oh.
But they
easy.
write them differently, I think. I don't know.
That's a little weird.
I think it's the same thing, though.
Okay.
Okay, so what was the end result of glycolysis?
end result of glycolysis, pyruvate.
How many?
2 of them.
2. And we've only talked about 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really we have 2 showing up, and this one goes through it. So this whole process occurs twice.
Haha, that's what I was talking about in the book, like 2 rotations or something
2
like
rotations, yep. And so here, how many CO2 are we making? Well, really we'd be making 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 NADH, 2 acetyl, and then 2 CO2, 2 NADH, 2 CO2, 2 NADH, 2 ATP, 2 FADH, 2 NADH.
Look at that.
That makes
Awesome,
sense?
That makes sense.
Okay. So in just one turn of the Krebs cycle,
Mm-hmm.
how much ATP is produced?
In 1 turn, I'll tell you. 1. Is that it? 1?
Just 1, right?
Oh, that's lame.
Krebs cycle that effective?
No.
No, but it's kind of like a precursor for what's going to happen next.
Okay.
Hence why we do it. We really want to produce a lot of these NADHs
Mm-hmm.
because they carry a lot of hydrogen. And that's really what's going to drive the production of ATP later on.
Okay.
So we don't make a lot of ATP here, but it's going to help us do it soon. How much NADH are made in the
In
cycle?
1. Total or just in 1 cycle?
Just one cycle.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4.
4. How much CO2?
CO2, 1, 2, 3.
3, right?
Mhm.
Remember these ones up here.
Yeah.
When this is all said and done, what remains? Well, okay, that's a bad question. How much FADH?
1.
Just 1, right? So all you have to do is just multiply those by 2,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what you've produced.
Awesome.
Okay, so if you went through glycolysis and then Krebs cycle,
Mm-hmm.
what would your net ATP be?
All of them added up.
Yep.
Okay, should I add them up?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. Glycolysis and this, right?
Yep.
So net for glycolysis is 2. So for ATP, 4.
4 ATP, right?
Yeah, easy.
So out of the 1 glucose that we've used, we made 4 ATP.
Okay, so 1 glucose is 4 ATP.
Yeah, so the decision that we were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
the 6th step, this decision is, are we going to do all this still because we have oxygen? Or are we going to just make lactic acid using the
Okay.
sugars? So,
What's more effective, lactic acid or the Krebs cycle?
it depends on what you're doing.
Okay.
If you want energy really quick, you're going to have to go through glycolysis because that ATP can be made quicker than this because it has to go through this whole cycle.
Yeah, that's time
Right.
consuming.
And so, it takes a while. But if you're needing energy for a long period of time, this will be the best way because eventually we pull out more ATP.
Okay.
So it just depends on what you're doing. Yeah.
Okay.
Your brain usually runs off of glycolysis,
Awesome.
but other parts of your body, it just depends.
Okay.
Right now, you're mostly using Krebs cycle and electron transport chain.
Okay.
So.
That's interesting. Awesome, that makes sense.
Okay. So here's another thing. The reason why you breathe so hard when you are exercising is to get rid of all the CO2.
Just, okay.
That CO2, that CO2, that CO2.
In the Krebs cycle to get rid of it all?
Yeah, because if you don't get rid of it, it's acidic. And so your that acid in your body, your pH is going to
What's that called? Like
decrease.
acidosis or something like that? Is
yeah.
that later?
Too much acid would be acidosis.
Okay.
Or there's ketoacidosis.
Oh yeah,
which we go
that's
over.
it.